turning to other right-wing grifters, let's talk about Tim Pool. This is really, it's one thing for Tim Pool to claim that he's been victimized because he was paid hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars to license content. It's another thing for Tim Pool to maybe know where this money came from and deny it. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. You know, who knows? Certainly, I think he has employees, my understanding, or has had, or maybe does, who worked at RT, knowing, you know, with personal relationships with a lot of the people involved. So it's not like this is I got a call out of the blue and somebody's offering me all this money. There are a lot of personal relationships involved in this with Tim Pool, but we're not talking about that now.
Well, I
now
just can't even.
Now we're talking about Tim Pool's just sheer idiocy about policy, which, you know, he knows better than to weigh into this stuff, folks. But every now and then he forgets. Here is Tim Pool. He would love to be in a presidential debate. Well, I have an idea. If you would love to be in a presidential debate, how about you and I run for president of, I don't know, whatever. We can run for president of the Tim Pool fan club or the Sam Seder fan club. But Tim is afraid to debate me, so he's made up some type of like story about how I was so offensive in not wanting to go into a studio during COVID. You can dig into my Twitter account. I released all of the DMs about it. But here's Tim Pool. He's itching to get on that debate stage.
That's a good point. I'd love to be in a presidential debate so I can just be like, I want to abolish Social Security. Just there you go. I will touch it. And I will take from it, and I will shut it down.
So what you would just like scale it out, just phase it out over the next 20 years or something?
Yep. It was a bad idea, and we can clearly see why it was a bad idea. It takes 4 workers to sustain 1 recipient. And so what we're basically saying is we should sacrifice the young for the sake of the old. That is a ridiculous thing for society.
Yeah, on its face, it's like I'm going to pay in taxes and insurance or whatever into this insurance program, and then when I retire, I'm going to recollect all that as my retirement. But they don't account for the inflation and the reduction of value of the money.
All right, pause it. Okay, I'm going to go through this here. These effing idiots know nothing about what they're talking about. First of all, let's just start with the basics. Social Security has now been around for 90 years. When it was introduced, within a couple of years, and it took a while to ramp up a little bit, because it is current workers pay for retirees. And then when the current workers become retirees, the then current workers pay for retirees. It does not matter. And he's the 4-for-1 thing is ridiculous. There's obviously less retirees than there are workers because people pass away. You know, that's just the reality of life. What the point that I think Tim Pool was trying to make, and he saw some thing that there used to be 8 workers. This is just a dynamic. Don't hold me to the specific numbers. There used to be 8 workers for every retiree, and now there's only 4. Well, Tim Pool doesn't understand why he's been told that that's problematic. They're told like, oh my God, how is it possible that 8 workers, 30 years ago or 40 years ago could support 1 retiree, and now we're relying on 4 workers to do that? Tim doesn't understand why that's a talking point on the right. In addition to him not understanding why that's a talking point on the right, because it sounds bad, like, oh my God, we have less workers to support more retirees. He thinks it's the opposite, I guess. But workers are more productive. They're generating more income. And so that works. When it was instituted in 1936, within years, a couple of years, 2/3 of our elderly were taken out of poverty. Right now, it keeps at least half of our elderly out of poverty, maybe more. There are supposed to be other things like guaranteed pensions and savings that are supposed to support people when they retire. But the thing that's keeping the vast majority, or I say the largest plurality of our seniors out of poverty is Social Security, period. There is a trust fund. It's essentially like a backup fund. that if Congress does nothing, is scheduled to run out in 2033. If that happens, if Congress does nothing, Social Security can sustain itself and pay out about 80% of benefits. But I will tell you what is going to be bankrupt, if you want to play it this way, next year. Everything in the government is going to be bankrupt next year, particularly because the Republicans now are threatening to not pay, to come up with a budget deal to shut down the government. Everything is going to go bankrupt. The way our government works is that each year Congress votes on things that will fund things. Congress can vote between now and 33, to simply raise the cap. Right now, only the first 100, I think, is it 40,000 or 60,000 is subject to Social Security taxes. Because of wealth inequality, we are not capturing or touching the same amount of income that we have consistently. If you raise that cap, you get rid of it, or you put a donut hole, whatever. Social Security is solvent until everyone who hears my voice dies, and probably even maybe their kids. All right, let's go back to Tim Pool and is it Ian?
Yep. Correct.
Neither of whom understand what Social Security does, how it works, how it's funded, and why it's one of the most popular government programs that exist.
Insurance or whatever into this insurance program, and then when I retire, I'm going to recollect all that as my retirement, but they don't account for the inflation and the reduction of value of the money. Well, the common man doesn't understand. If I put 10,000 in over the course of 40 years, in 40 years, that's probably going to be worth about $2,000.
It was a game where they decided, look, population's expanding, right?
We have something called COLAs. COLAs, cost of living increases. Social Security gives higher benefits based upon inflation. In fact, when inflation went up over the past couple of years, seniors saw the biggest bump that they have gotten in Social Security payments in a long time. Now, there is an argument that costs for seniors are actually higher based upon what they spend on than the average population, and we should raise that. And I agree, we should raise the cost of living increases. In fact, I believe we should increase Social Security benefits, period, to everybody. They're not arguing that. They're saying it's too chintzy. Well, collect taxes on people who make more than $160,000 a year, Social Security taxes, and you'll be able to give more generous benefits, and then we can be on the same page. Go back.
So let's just, instead of having to save for retirement or have a family to take care of us, let's just make the expanding generations pay for it. Sooner or later, they must have been assuming at the time, like, look, people are going to keep having kids. So long as they have 3 kids, we got nothing to worry about. And now they're having 1.6 kids. And now they're like, okay, it's going to implode.
Pause it.
And
now this guy is so stupid. It is, I mean, this is like what we talked about the other day with Brett Weinstein and Joe Rogan, when they were like, nobody's thought about exit polls at a time where there are people doing absentee voting. But in fact, if you Google, you'll find, yes, all of the exit polling outfits completely are aware that there's absentee voting. And so they do other types of interviews, not just people walking out of the polling things. Actuarials know exactly how many kids people are having. In fact, you have a 65 year horizon, or actually 67, starting in a year or two, as to when people are going to retire from when they're born. We know the birth rates from last year. Actuarials knew this in advance. In fact, there was a deal in 1982 where wage taxes were raised because Alan Greenspan and Ronald Reagan during that administration could project into the future. Oh my God, a lot of people were born in the post years known as the baby boomers. There's going to be more of those people going into retirement than we've had in the past. We need to raise taxes a little bit on this. And it worked out well. That's where the trust fund came from. The idea that we're going to run out of workers. He almost said we're going to run out of people because he wants to say it's a Ponzi scheme. But the fact is, the only way that this is a Ponzi scheme is if, in fact, we do run out of people. If sometime in the future, people turn 65 or 67 and they retire, and then aliens come in and collect all the workers who are under that age and ship them off to another planet, and they are no longer paying Social Security taxes, then yes, we will run out of money. But no, we can definitely address people having 1.6 babies. You know, one of the great ways of doing that? Do you know who pays into a ton? Like I say, at the top of the show, I think we said something like almost $100 billion annually into wage taxes that go into Social Security. That's undocumented immigrants. Documented immigrants, a whole nother cohort of money. In fact, we could let in more immigrants. If we're afraid of running out of kids and workers, we've solved another problem that we have, haven't we? Except for the fact that maybe some of those workers might not be as white as other people. But continue.
And now they're having 1.6 kids. And now they're like, okay, it's going to implode. And all these politicians are like, I will not touch your Social Security because I don't want to lose the senior vote in the most important voting block. It's okay. So older people are going to keep voting to take from the young, while young people struggle to buy homes and get off the ground. And the older voters are going to be like, don't care. I want it. It's mine. And I'm going to keep voting for it. And The Simpsons made the joke.
Pause it for a second. Now, what Tim Pool doesn't understand here is those younger people will ultimately retire and want to retire and will rely on Social Security in the same way that current seniors do. The other thing that Tim Pool doesn't understand, because he's so alienated from other people, including his family, is that some of us, when we have kids and have older parents, Social Security benefits us because we don't have to keep our parents out of poverty. Things like Medicaid, also a function of wage taxes, benefits us because we don't have to pay $20,000 a month if our parents are in a home. And so I can take care of my kids instead of having to worry about a parent and who's going to care for them. And I can take care of my kids and don't have to worry about a parent because she may have had the Social Security that provided for her ability to pay for a mortgage or pay for rent in a house. He doesn't understand this because he is sitting in a multi-million-dollar compound and has no family and doesn't have a relationship apparently with his parents and doesn't have to understand the value of Social Security and how that helps younger people too.
The idea that the amount you contribute to Social Security is what the difference in stopping people from buying a home. I mean, have you looked at housing prices? Only somebody like Tim Pool, who does skate parks and sushi all day in West Virginia, could believe that.
All right, let's play it just a little bit more.
Homes and get off the ground, and the older voters are going to be like, don't care. I want it. It's mine, and I'm going to keep voting for it. And The Simpsons made the joke in 1992 when Abe Simpson is making fun of people. I think he's making fun of young people being like good for nothing. So you just want everything for free. Then he runs into the Social Security office and goes, "I'm old. Give me it. I deserve it. It's mine." It's like that. That's how I feel about it.
It's sad to think about elderly people.
Pause it. I got news for you. That old person who ran into that Social had actually paid into Social Security for his entire life. Well, 92, 36, maybe, maybe for the vast majority of his life. In fact, that Social Security is his. That's why they call it entitlements. I prefer calling it social insurance, and that's what it is. It's paying into an insurance program. And if you do not need this insurance, if you are one of the lucky people who do not need the insurance of Social Security, society has a method of which it can basically say, okay, you'll get the Social Security even though you didn't need it because you're rich enough in your retirement to not need it. We have a methodology of correcting that, and it's called taxation. And therefore, if combined with your Social Security, your income from your pensions or your, 401k, or you're selling your house or whatever it is high enough, we'll tax it and we'll make it right there. Now, Ian here is going to talk about how sort of sad to think of like old people having to eat cat food. Go ahead.
That's how I feel about it.
It's sad to think about elderly people going bankrupt and living on the street, like, because they don't have any income at all.
And this is a perverse system that told people,
Pause it.
Don't have a family, don't have kids, don't
Pause it. But it's sad to think of like old people having to eat cat food. It's sad to think of people living on the street and being homeless at age 65 or 70 or 72, eating cat food, 78. But then Tim goes on rants. I'm sorry, I'm going too long on this, but this level of stupidity about something that is really so fundamental is impressive.
It's sadder for Tim that those people get fed.
Yep. Let's just go back just a little bit. Here we go.
Think about elderly people going bankrupt and living on the street, like, because they don't have any income at all.
And this is a perverse system that told people, don't have a family, don't have kids, don't worry, you'll be fine. Government will pay for it. We will, by force, make young people pay the bills of people who didn't have families. That's insane.
I love this idea of seeing you on the presidential debate stage. If we ever saw a potential president,
okay, that's it.
Running mate.
Yeah, whatever. More on the
God, we watch more on that, but it's a quarter of 3. I'm sorry, folks. They had all sorts of bigger plans. We were going to go on that hot Republican conservative lunatic on hot Republican lunatic fighting. Folks, I'm sorry. We don't have any more time for phone calls. I apologize. People have been hanging on the phone for hours. Not hours, but over an hour. But there's a lot of young people out there who are listening to Tim Pool and think it makes sense because he is so dumb. And of course, he gets subsidized. And I want to make it clear, he gets victimized / subsidized by hidden Russian money to spread the word about this stuff. That $800,000 he got, or whatever it was, maybe he can correct us. Was it how much? Millions? Do we know exactly how much he got paid? And they were all victimized. He was beaten with this money. And I know that to him, because of his empire, it's virtually nothing. But let's just say it goes into, I don't know, advertising. Didn't he put up a billboard? All that that money into billboards to promote the stupidest stuff possible. At the very least, congratulations to Ian for at least being conscious of the fact that you're going to impoverish people who are senior citizens in their supposed golden years. It was more of like, what can you do? But here is also newsflash. And I say this as someone who is, I don't know, am I double Tim Pool's age? How old is Tim Pool now?
Good question.
I think he's in his late 30s.
I'm not quite double his age.
38. Yep.
But here's I'm 20 years older than him. You get older if you're lucky. And then if you live in a just society, you don't have to eat cat food.
Well, yeah, some social shadowy businessman from Europe might just give you thousands and thousands of dollars, and you can subsist
Maybe
on that.
Eduardo Giordane, or whatever the guy's name is. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.